What is the cerebellum? The cerebellum, which is Latin for little brain, is a major structure of the hindbrain that is located near the brainstem. This part of the brain is responsible for coordinating voluntary movements. It is also responsible for a number of functions including motor skills such as balance, coordination, and posture. The cerebellum is the largest structure of the hindbrain and can be found in the back portion of the skull below the temporal and occipital lobes and behind the brainstem. When looking at the brain, the cerebellum looks much like a smaller structure separate from the brain, found beneath the hemispheres of the cerebral cortex. The cerebellum consists of a cortex covering white matter, as well as a ventricle filled with fluid. It is also divided into two hemispheres like the cerebral cortex. There are two main parts of the cerebellum. The cerebellum makes up just 10% of the total volume of the brain, yet it contains an estimated 50% to 80% of the brain's neurons. The cerebellum receives information from other regions of the brain and nervous system including the brainstem, spinal cord, and cerebrum. This incoming information is then used by the cerebellum to coordinate and control voluntary movements. The cerebellum is like a mini-brain when it comes to movement and plays an important role in coordination, posture, and balance, as well as in speech and a number of important mental processes. There are several key functions of the cerebellum, including: the cerebellum has an impact on a number of critical functions. Movement is a complex process that requires a number of different muscle groups working together. Consider how many muscle groups are involved in the process of walking, running, or throwing a ball. While the cerebellum is not thought to initiate movement, this part of the brain helps organize all of the actions of the muscle groups involved in a particular movement to ensure that the body is able to produce a fluid, coordinated movement. This includes eye movements and movements associated with speaking. Researchers believe the cerebellum plays a role in thinking, including processing language and mood, as well as attention, fear response, and pleasure or reward response. In order to understand the important role that the cerebellum plays, it can be helpful to look at what happens when the function of this part of the brain is impaired. Drinking alcohol, for example, has an immediate effect on the cerebellum and leads to disruptions in the body's coordination and movements. People who are severely intoxicated might find that they cannot even walk in a straight line or touch their own nose when instructed. When you learn to perform a new skill such as riding a bike or hitting a baseball, you often go through a trial and error process. As you fine-tune your motor movements, you eventually become better able to perform the skill, and eventually, you can perform the action seamlessly. The cerebellum plays a critical role in this motor learning process. Damage to the cerebellum, or to its connection to other parts of the nervous system, can be a result of trauma, congenital condition, health conditions, medications, and other factors, including: when your cerebellum is damaged, nerve cells break down and die and can cause the following. While you can't prevent many of the health conditions linked to cerebellum dysfunction, there are some steps you can take to keep your brain healthy and injury-free.